What truly drives us? This question influences every aspect of how we work, learn, and live. For years, we believed that rewards and punishments, the classic carrot and stick, were the main motivators. But what if that's just part of the picture? This book reveals a powerful truth. Real motivation springs from within. It's powered by autonomy, mastery, and purpose, forces that push us to excel not out of obligation, but because we genuinely want to. If you're ready to change how you understand motivation, this book will transform your perspective forever. Chapter 1, The Rise and Fall of Motivation 2.0. I want to take you back to a time when the world was simpler, when survival was the only currency that mattered. Picture our earliest ancestors. Their motivations were raw and urgent. Eat, stay warm, stay safe. This was motivation 1.0, the biological drive. It was basic but effective. But as societies evolved, as humans began to trade and build systems of cooperation, a deeper layer of behavior had to emerge. It wasn't enough to just react to hunger or fear. We had to collaborate, to plan, to agree on norms. That's when Motivation 2.0 entered the scene. Motivation 2.0 was built on a surprisingly straightforward idea: reward good behavior, punish the bad. It assumed that humans, at their core, were like machines. If you pulled the right levers, offered the right incentives or penalties, you could steer behavior in whatever direction you needed. And for a while, it worked. Think of the industrial age. Assembly lines, punch cards, mass production. People were expected to show up, follow instructions, and perform repetitive tasks. If they did that, they got a paycheck. If they slacked off, there were consequences. This system fueled economic expansion, industrial dominance, and massive organizational growth. It was tidy, predictable, controllable. But here's the problem. The world changed, and Motivation 2.0 didn't. Today, the nature of work looks radically different. We no longer just hire hands, we hire minds. Creative problem solving, innovation, and adaptive thinking have become the new currency. Yet we're still using a motivational system designed for another era, like trying to run cutting-edge software on an outdated operating system. It crashes, it fails, and it doesn't make sense. I remember when I first started noticing the cracks. Businesses were pouring millions into performance bonuses, and yet productivity plateaued. Morale tanked. People weren't engaged. They were compliant, maybe, but not committed. I began to question everything I thought I knew about motivation. The science was clear, though most of us weren't paying attention. Decades of research in behavioral science, psychology, and economics were telling a different story. The classic carrot and stick approach wasn't just outdated, it was often counterproductive. It could crush creativity, reduce long-term performance, and even encourage unethical behavior. Let me give you a glimpse into this contradiction. There was this study, one of many, that really jolted me. Researchers gave participants a simple task: solve puzzles. Half were paid, half were not. Initially, the ones being paid worked diligently. But the moment the payment stopped, so did the effort. The unpaid participants, though, kept going. They found joy in the challenge itself. That's when the light bulb clicked. External rewards can extinguish internal motivation. It's a phenomenon psychologists call the over-justification effect. Pay someone to do something they already enjoy, and you risk converting a play into work. Once the reward goes away, so does the interest. In short, external motivators can actually demotivate. I came to see Motivation 2.0 as a once powerful engine that had run out of gas. It was never designed for the complexities of today's economy, not for Google engineers crafting code, not for teachers inspiring restless classrooms, not for doctors making split-second decisions. We need something better, something more attuned to how human beings actually operate. And so I began to imagine a new system, one not fueled by control and compliance, but by autonomy, mastery, and purpose. These three elements didn't emerge out of thin air. They surfaced from research, stories, experiments, and lived experience. They offered an upgrade, Motivation 3.0, a system designed not just to get people to do things, but to help them want to do them. But before we can build that new system, we have to understand exactly why the old one failed. And that's the purpose of this chapter. To look at Motivation 2.0 not as an enemy, but as an ancestor, useful in its time, but unfit for the present. It's not about discarding everything we know. It's about evolving, because the future of work and the people who do it demand nothing less. Chapter 2, 7 reasons carrots and sticks often don't work. You've been told the story since childhood. Do good, get a reward. Mess up, face the consequences. It's neat, it's clean, it's easy to implement, and it's deeply flawed. I once believed that if you dangled the right carrot or brandished a big enough stick, you could get anyone to do almost anything. After all, it works with donkeys. It seemed to work in factories, classrooms, and cubicles. But when I began diving into decades of behavioral science, the truth emerged. External rewards and punishments often don't just fail, they backfire. Let me walk you through 7 powerful reasons why these old motivational tricks don't hold up in the modern world. 1. They can crush intrinsic motivation. Imagine giving a child $1 every time they read a book. At first, it might look like a success. Reading increases. But as the weeks pass and the payments stop, so does the reading. Why? Because what was once a joy became a transaction. Over and over, research shows this. When people do something they love, introducing an external reward, like money or grades, can sap the joy out of it. It replaces curiosity and passion with calculation and obligation. This is the heart of the overjustification effect. The external reward replaces the internal desire. 2. They can diminish performance. It sounds counterintuitive. Pay more, get less. But that's what happens in tasks that require creativity, critical thinking, or deep concentration. There's a classic study involving candle problems. Participants had to attach a candle to a wall using a box of tacks and matches. The ones offered money to solve it quickly actually performed worse than those simply asked to do it. Why? Because when the stakes are high and rewards are looming, the brain narrows its focus. Great for simple tasks, terrible for anything requiring innovation or flexible thinking. You get tunnel vision, not insight. 3. They can crush creativity. The most groundbreaking work, from art to science to entrepreneurship, comes from people deeply immersed in the problem, not from those chasing a bonus. When rewards become the goal, people take the shortest route to get there. That usually means safe, predictable, and mediocre. If you want original thought, you need people who are intrinsically motivated, who do the work for the sheer love of it, the challenge, the possibility. External rewards crowd that out. They nudge people to focus on what's profitable, not what's possible. 4. They can crowd out good behavior. You might think rewards encourage ethical action. Often they do the opposite. Take blood donations, for example. In one study, when people were paid to donate blood, donations dropped. Why? Because the payment crowded out the sense of moral satisfaction. A noble act became a business transaction. People like doing good. But when you reward them for it, it stops feeling like goodness. It starts feeling like a job. And when that reward disappears, so does the behavior. 5. They can encourage cheating, shortcuts, and unethical behavior. When the reward is all that matters, the method becomes irrelevant. We've seen it in schools with standardized testing. Teaching to the test, manipulating results, even cheating. We've seen it in business. Fudged sales numbers, hidden losses, rigged accounts. The carrot, dangled recklessly, turns people desperate. And desperation doesn't inspire integrity, it inspires deception. Rewards make outcomes matter more than the process, and that's when ethics erode. 6. They can become addictive like a drug. External rewards can feel good at first, but over time, people develop tolerance. What once motivated them becomes the new normal. You gave someone a bonus last year, they'll expect it this year, and more next time. It becomes a cycle, more rewards to get the same effort. But the underlying motivation weakens. People stop working for the love of the job or pride in performance. They start working for the next hit, and if the hit doesn't come, neither does the effort. 7. They can foster short-term thinking bonuses tied to quarterly performance. Sales incentives based on end-of-month numbers. What do you think happens? People race to hit the mark, cutting corners, ignoring long-term consequences, cannibalizing future gains to make today's numbers look pretty. It's not strategy, it's survival. Rewards push people to think short-term. But the biggest challenges, building a company, raising a child, healing a community, require patience, resilience, and long-term vision. Carrots and sticks are poor tools for that kind of work. As I peeled back the layers, the conclusion became unavoidable. The traditional approach to motivation is broken. It's like using gasoline to power an electric car. It might seem powerful, but it's fundamentally incompatible. That doesn't mean all rewards are evil or that praise should be banned. It means we have to be smarter. We have to understand the contexts where extrinsic motivators help and the many where they hurt. Because here's the truth. What matters most isn't what people do. It's why they do it. When people act because they're compelled, because the carrot is shiny or the stick is threatening, they may comply. But when they act because they care, because the work matters, because it connects with who they are, that's when commitment is born. And that's the spark we need to chase. Chapter 3, and the special circumstances when they do. Let me be clear. Carrots and sticks aren't inherently bad. They're not the enemy. In fact, in the right setting, they can work brilliantly. The mistake we've made isn't using them. It's overusing them and using them in the wrong places. This chapter is about recognizing when rewards and punishments do work, when they're not destructive, but useful, even necessary. Think of this chapter as a scalpel, not a hammer. We're not trying to smash through motivation problems with blunt force. We're trying to apply the right tool with surgical precision. Routine tasks, where external rewards shine. Start here. Routine, algorithmic tasks, the kind that are repetitive, rule-based, and require minimal creativity. If you're running a factory line, entering data, sorting files, or performing any job where the steps are defined and measurable, external rewards can absolutely increase motivation and output. These tasks don't rely on insight, artistry, or deep problem solving. They depend on consistency, efficiency, accuracy. And when you offer a clear reward for a clear task, people respond. In one real-world example, a call center used small, immediate bonuses to boost call volume. It worked. People made more calls. Simple task, simple reward, clear cause and effect. That's the key. Clarity. When the path to the reward is straightforward and the work itself is mechanical, carrots and sticks can function well. But even here, there's a catch. Be careful what you reward. Not all rewards are created equal. If you reward the wrong behavior, you'll encourage the wrong outcomes. It's astonishing how often organizations forget this. Reward teachers solely on student test scores? You'll get teaching to the test, not teaching for understanding. Reward bankers on short-term profits? You'll get reckless risk-taking, not long-term value. The lesson is brutal but simple. People respond to incentives, but not always in the way you intended. Design them poorly, and you breed unintended consequences. If-then rewards. The risks and the exceptions. Most traditional incentives are if-then rewards. If you hit this target, then you get this bonus. If you follow this rule, then you avoid this penalty. In creative or cognitive work, if-then rewards usually backfire. But when the task is boring, mindless, or simply unpleasant, these rewards can help by providing a reason to engage in something people would otherwise avoid. For instance, let's say you're asking someone to stuff 10,000 envelopes. Nobody dreams of this. There's no joy in it. In that context, offering a small bonus for completion isn't damaging. It's a way to overcome inertia. You're not replacing intrinsic motivation because there was none to begin with. When used transparently and fairly, rewards aren't toxic by default, but they become corrosive when they're manipulative or arbitrary. If you want them to work and not backfire, they need to be fair, transparent, and expected. People must know what they're working toward. They need to trust that the goalposts won't move and that others aren't gaming the system. When used with integrity, rewards can create a short-term jolt of motivation without undermining the culture. But again, this works best for short bursts of routine work, not as a long-term motivational strategy. The role of now-that rewards. While if-then rewards often lead to trouble, now-that rewards are different. These are unexpected rewards given after the task is done, not to manipulate behavior, but to recognize effort. For example, now that you've finished the project, here's a bonus to say thank you. These kinds of rewards don't act as bribes. They don't signal to people that the task is only worthwhile if there's a payoff. Instead, they amplify intrinsic motivation by affirming that the person's effort mattered. Used sparingly and sincerely, now that rewards can reinforce a culture of appreciation without hijacking autonomy. When people are strapped for money. Let's not ignore economic reality. If someone can't pay rent, afford food, or cover medical bills, external rewards matter a lot because survival is at stake. In such cases, raising pay or offering a financial incentive can unlock motivation that's been suppressed by anxiety and scarcity. So yes, money matters, especially up to a certain threshold. Studies show that once people earn enough to meet basic needs and achieve a sense of security, additional money has diminishing motivational returns. But until that line is crossed, rewards can liberate attention and focus because they remove existential pressure. Don't confuse laziness with crushing financial stress. Sometimes carrots don't just motivate, they rescue. When the goal is compliance, not engagement. There are moments where you don't need creativity, you don't need passion, you just need compliance. Someone to follow a rule, perform a step, or meet a requirement. In those moments, external motivators may be the simplest path. You don't need someone to love filing reports, you just need the reports filed. Here, carrots and sticks can be efficient, but don't mistake compliance for commitment. It's a weak currency. If that's the only thing you trade in, you'll never build a culture that innovates, grows, or thrives. So when do carrots and sticks work? A summary. When the task is mechanical or routine, when the reward is clearly linked to performance, when you're seeking compliance, not creativity, when people are facing economic hardship, when the reward is unexpected and non-controlling, when the task offers little or no intrinsic motivation. These are the narrow but important lanes where external motivators can play a role. But if you take them outside that lane, into the world of innovation, artistry, problem-solving, or collaboration, they begin to derail progress. In truth, carrots and sticks are like antibiotics, powerful, effective, but easy to misuse. They're not a lifestyle, they're a short-term fix. And just like overusing antibiotics breeds resistance, overusing rewards breeds disengagement. What we need next isn't more compliance, it's deeper commitment. And that requires us to reach beyond Motivation 2.0 and start building a system that actually fits the way we work and live today. That's where we go next. Chapter 4, Type 1 and Type X. Let's stop pretending that everyone is motivated the same way. Beneath all the talk about drive, performance, and success, there are two fundamentally different sources of human motivation. I call them Type X and Type 1. Understanding the difference between them isn't just theory, it's a map for how to reshape work, education, leadership, and life. Type X behavior is driven primarily by extrinsic motivation. These are the people focused on external rewards, money, fame, power, titles, grades, trophies, applause. They may be hardworking, ambitious, even successful, but what fuels their behavior is the outcome, not the activity itself. Their focus is on what they'll get from doing something, not what they'll become or how it feels to do it. Think of the salesperson obsessed with commissions, the employee who cares only about getting promoted, the student who studies not to learn but to score high enough for a scholarship or job. This is the behavior we've spent decades rewarding, reinforcing, and replicating. But it's limited. You see, Type X motivation is fragile. It requires constant maintenance. Take away the prize and motivation collapses. Raise the bar on the reward, and people adapt. They expect more each time. Worse, it often pushes people toward competition, shortcuts, and unethical behavior because the goal matters more than the process. Type X behavior can lead to high performance in the short run, but it's narrow, transactional, and unsustainable. It's reactive. It's built on anxiety and expectation, not joy or commitment. Now contrast that with Type 1 behavior. These individuals are powered by intrinsic motivation, the drive to do something because it's interesting, fulfilling, or aligned with a deeper purpose. Type 1 people strive for mastery, seek autonomy, and crave a sense of purpose. They don't need someone to dangle a carrot in front of them or threaten them with a stick. Their engine runs from the inside out. They write music because they love the sound, not because they're chasing a record deal. They volunteer because they believe in the cause, not because they want a certificate. They solve problems because they're curious, not because they're being paid by the hour. And here's the beautiful part. Type 1 behavior is more resilient, more creative, and more fulfilling. These people don't burn out the way Type X people do. They're more engaged, more collaborative, more innovative. Studies consistently show that people motivated intrinsically tend to outperform those driven by rewards when the task demands insight, creativity, or long-term commitment. Type 1 individuals take ownership of their work, not because they have to, but because they want to. But perhaps the most important truth is this. Type 1 is not a rare personality trait. It's a mindset, and it can be cultivated. It's not that some people are born type 1 and others are doomed to be type X forever. Our systems and environments shape the behaviors we adopt. Most of our schools, companies, and institutions are set up to manufacture type X people. We train children to chase grades instead of curiosity. We train employees to chase promotions instead of purpose. But change the environment, change the way we measure, reward, and empower people, and we can awaken the type 1 in almost anyone. What does that require? First, it requires understanding that money is a threshold motivator, not a sustaining one. People need to be paid fairly, of course. If someone is underpaid, motivation crumbles. But once people are paid enough to take the issue of money off the table, additional money has little effect on motivation for complex or creative tasks. At that point, what people want is not more cash, but more control over their work, autonomy, a chance to get better at something meaningful, mastery, and a connection to something larger than themselves, purpose. These are the 3 pillars of Motivation 3.0, and they are the lifeblood of type 1 behavior. Second, it requires rethinking how we lead, teach, and manage. Most leaders assume people won't work unless they're pushed. That's a type X view. But what if people are more likely to excel when they're trusted, when they're invited to bring their full selves to the table? That's the type 1 philosophy. It's less about control, more about unleashing what's already inside people. Managers don't need to manipulate. They need to remove obstacles, offer guidance, and provide space for intrinsic motivation to flourish. And third, it requires each of us to re-examine what truly drives us. Are we chasing validation, or are we chasing growth? Are we motivated by what looks good on a resume, or by what feels right in our bones? Are we choosing the safe reward, or the risky purpose? The truth is, we all have a bit of type X and type 1 in us. The question is which one we feed more often. Type X motivation can get you through tasks. It can win you a job, a bonus, a degree. But it won't sustain you. It won't satisfy you. Type 1 motivation is what makes you feel alive. It's what makes you lose track of time when you're working. It's what keeps you going when there's no prize in sight. The future of work, of education, of progress depends on elevating type 1 behavior. It means building systems that encourage curiosity over compliance, growth over greed, meaning over metrics. Because in the long run, it's not the carrot or the stick that drives real achievement. It's the fire inside. Chapter 5, Autonomy. If there's a single word that captures the heart of intrinsic motivation, it's this: autonomy. The desire to direct our own lives, to have control over what we do, when we do it, and how we do it. This is not a luxury or a perk. It's a basic human need. And yet, in most schools, workplaces, and institutions, autonomy is the one thing we routinely strip away. We assume that to get people to perform, we have to monitor, manage, and motivate them. The old school mindset says people won't do the right thing unless they're watched or prodded. But what if that assumption is exactly backward? What if people are more productive, creative, and engaged when they're not being micromanaged, when they're free to make their own choices? Let's start with the science. In one experiment, researchers gave college students puzzles to solve. Some were allowed to choose which puzzles to tackle and how to approach them. Others had no choice at all. The group with autonomy not only performed better, they also showed more persistence and enjoyment. The same pattern repeats across industries, age groups, and cultures. When people feel they have control, they thrive. When control is taken from them, performance drops, engagement fades, and motivation dies. Autonomy doesn't mean anarchy. It doesn't mean doing whatever you want whenever you want. What it means is having a say in your work, having the freedom to shape your tasks, and being treated like a trusted adult, not a cog in a machine. Now, there are 4 key areas where autonomy matters most: task, time, technique, and team. Let's break those down. 1. Task, what people do. In traditional management, the tasks are dictated from above. You're told exactly what to work on, with little room to deviate. But when people are given choice over their tasks, something changes. They take ownership. They lean in. They bring more of themselves to the table. Look at companies like Google. For years, they allowed engineers to spend 20% of their time on any project they wanted, even if it had nothing to do with their main job. That policy gave birth to products like Gmail, Google Maps, and AdSense. Innovation didn't come from tight control. It came from letting people chase what mattered to them. Giving people the freedom to pursue their interests doesn't lead to chaos. It leads to creativity, initiative, and unexpected breakthroughs. Tax your time. When people do it, 9 to 5 is dead. The idea that productivity happens only between set hours is not only outdated, it's actively harmful. People have different rhythms. Some do their best thinking early in the morning. Others hit their stride at midnight. Locking everyone into the same schedule ignores reality. Organizations that offer flexible schedules often see a rise in performance, morale, and loyalty. It's not about slacking off. It's about letting people structure their day around when they're at their best. Autonomy over time respects individuals as self-managing adults, not school children who need bells to tell them when to move. And yes, deadlines still matter. Accountability still exists. But how people get to the finish line? That's where freedom unlocks potential. 3. Technique. How people do it. Have you ever been handed a task with the exact steps you're supposed to follow, down to every last detail? It's suffocating. People don't want to be told how to breathe. They want to be given a destination, not a rigid map. When you give people autonomy over how to do their work, you're saying, I trust you to figure this out. That trust leads to ownership. It encourages innovation. It invites people to bring their full intelligence and experience into the job, not just their compliance. This is especially important for knowledge workers, creatives, and anyone whose job involves problem solving. The freedom to choose the method can be more motivating than the task itself. 4. Team. Who people work with. Collaboration matters, but forcing people to work with colleagues they don't trust, respect, or even get along with, that drains energy. It creates friction instead of flow. Autonomy means giving people some say in who they team up with. It doesn't mean cliques or favoritism. It means allowing people to form connections based on shared purpose, skills, and mutual respect. People want to work with those who elevate them, not those who drag them down. Even small freedoms here, like choosing project partners or forming cross-functional teams voluntarily, can drastically increase engagement and outcomes. The proof in the real world. Companies that embrace autonomy consistently outperform those that don't. Atlassian, an Australian software company, gives employees FedEx days, now called Ship It days, 24 hours to work on any project they want, as long as they deliver something at the end. The results? New features, bug fixes, ideas that would never have emerged under normal structure. Best Buy once experimented with a results-only work environment, ROWE, where employees could work whenever and wherever they wanted, as long as the work got done. The result was higher productivity, lower turnover, and happier staff. Autonomy doesn't mean people will slack off. It means they'll step up because the work feels like theirs. Autonomy feeds mastery and purpose. Here's the deeper connection. Autonomy is the gateway to mastery and purpose, the other two pillars of true motivation. You can't get better at something if you're not allowed to shape how you practice. You can't connect to a higher purpose if you're constantly being ordered around like a robot. Autonomy is not about hands-off management. It's about smart trust. It's about creating a culture where people are free to act, encouraged to experiment, and expected to deliver, not out of fear, but out of pride and personal investment. In the age of creativity and complexity, control is a liability. Autonomy is a competitive edge. So if you're trying to spark motivation in your team, your students, or even yourself, don't just throw incentives at the problem. Hand over some control. Give people the room to move, to choose, to own their work. What you'll find isn't chaos, it's commitment. Not rebellion, but responsibility. Because when people feel free, they don't just work harder. They work smarter, better, and with more soul. Chapter 6. Mastery. If autonomy is the engine that powers motivation, then mastery is the drive that keeps us going. It's the deep personal hunger to get better at something that matters, not for applause or external reward, but because improvement itself feels meaningful. Mastery isn't a destination. It's a mindset, a pursuit, a lifelong path. And it's one of the most powerful sources of true motivation we have. Think about the last time you were completely immersed in something. Maybe learning a musical instrument, coding a tricky program, painting, cooking, or writing. Hours passed like minutes. You weren't chasing a prize. You weren't calculating the payoff. You were simply engaged, challenged, and fully present. That feeling, that's the essence of mastery in action. The pursuit of mastery is what psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi described as flow, that rare and intoxicating state where the task in front of you is so absorbing that you lose track of time, ego, and everything else. Flow happens when challenge meets skill, when the work isn't too easy to be boring or too hard to be frustrating. It's right in that sweet spot, and it's in that space where people do their best work and feel their deepest satisfaction. But mastery is not about perfection. It's not about being the best in the world. It's about the desire to improve, to grow, to develop deeper expertise over time. That's where the true magic of motivation lives. Because unlike rewards that fade or recognition that's fleeting, mastery is internal. It grows with you. It can't be given. It must be earned. There are 3 core truths about mastery that shape how we understand and pursue it. 1. Mastery is a mindset. You have to believe that your abilities aren't fixed. Carol Dweck's research on growth mindset is central here. People who believe intelligence and talent are static tend to avoid challenges, give up easily, and fear failure. But those with a growth mindset, those who believe abilities can be developed, embrace difficulty as a chance to improve. Mastery demands that mindset. It starts with a belief: I can get better with effort. Without that belief, progress stops. But with it, even the most daunting skill becomes approachable. You realize that struggle is part of the process, not a sign of inadequacy, but a signal of growth. 2. Mastery is pain. There's no sugarcoating this. Mastery is hard. It's frustrating, slow, and often discouraging. You'll hit plateaus, you'll fail, you'll feel stuck. And in those moments when nothing seems to move forward, the temptation to quit is strongest. But if you understand that mastery isn't linear, that it comes with dips, dead zones, and doubt, you're less likely to give up. The key is to push through the pain, to keep practicing even when the rewards are invisible. Because mastery isn't about the breakthrough moments. It's about the hundreds of quiet hours nobody sees, the slow grind of skill sharpening, the repetition that transforms effort into excellence. It's no coincidence that the people we admire most, the athletes, artists, innovators, are often the ones most obsessed with getting just a little bit better every day. They don't chase finish lines, they chase progress. 3. Mastery is asymptotic. You can get close to mastery, but you can never fully reach it. The curve flattens the higher you climb. Improvement gets harder, gains become smaller. And yet, the closer you get, the more obsessed you become with what lies just beyond your grasp. That's the paradox. The more you master something, the more you see how much is left to learn. It's humbling. It's endless. But it's also exhilarating. Because mastery, in its purest form, isn't about arriving. It's about the pursuit itself. When people chase mastery, they don't need rewards dangled in front of them. The process is the reward. The act of getting better, of solving a harder puzzle, of pushing the edge of what you can do, that's what keeps them going. Now let's talk about the real-world implications. In most schools and companies, we do almost nothing to support mastery. We emphasize outcomes, test scores, performance reviews, quarterly goals, while ignoring the conditions that allow mastery to grow. We rush learning. We cut corners. We punish failure instead of seeing it as a learning tool. If we want more motivated students, more engaged workers, more fulfilled people, we have to create environments that respect the pace of mastery. That means giving people time to practice. It means focusing on feedback, not just evaluation. It means celebrating small wins, not just final results. And it means creating cultures where continuous improvement is more important than instant perfection. Mastery also connects directly to autonomy. When people are free to choose their path, they're more likely to throw themselves into developing their skills. You don't get better at something by being forced. You get better because you're drawn to it, because it challenges you in the right way, because it stretches your limits without snapping them. And mastery feeds into purpose. The more skilled you become at something that matters to you, the more you want to use that skill to contribute to something larger. The 3 elements, autonomy, mastery, purpose, are not isolated forces. They are intertwined, each feeding the others. Remove one, and the whole structure weakens. Strengthen one, and the others rise with it. Mastery is slow. It's difficult. It never ends. But it is the deepest kind of motivation we have, the fire that keeps burning long after the applause fades and the reward is spent. It's what makes people show up early, stay late, obsess over details, and sacrifice comfort for growth. Not because they have to, but because they can't imagine doing otherwise. In a world that rewards speed and shortcuts, mastery is a quiet rebellion. It's the long game, and it's worth everything. Chapter 7, Purpose. We've already seen how autonomy, the freedom to direct our own lives, and mastery, the urge to get better at something that matters, are critical to motivation. But these alone don't complete the picture. Without a deeper reason, a larger cause to connect with, autonomy can feel like aimlessness, and mastery can turn into obsession with no meaning. What gives our work true power and longevity is purpose, the sense that what we do serves something beyond ourselves, that our efforts contribute to a greater good. Human beings aren't just economic calculators or mechanical workers. We are meaning seekers. We want to believe that our time and energy count for something, that our work matters not only to us but to others and to the world. This need for purpose is deeply embedded in our biology and psychology. When we find purpose, we experience greater fulfillment, resilience, and sustained motivation. Yet for too long, much of our work environment has ignored this truth. Purpose has been treated like an afterthought or a luxury. Instead, organizations have focused on output, efficiency, and short-term gains, often reducing complex human drives to simplistic incentives like bonuses or promotions. Mission statements get framed on posters, but rarely shape everyday work. This disconnect creates a profound problem. People show up, do their jobs, but don't feel connected or committed. They go through the motions without passion or pride. But when purpose is clearly defined and authentically lived, it can transform everything. It moves people beyond carrots and sticks and taps into what psychologist Viktor Frankl called our will to meaning. People work harder, persevere longer, and innovate more when they see how their efforts contribute to something larger than themselves. Purpose is the difference between slaving away for a paycheck and working with heart and conviction. Purpose comes in many shapes and sizes. For some, it's about helping others, teachers shaping young minds, doctors saving lives, social workers changing communities. For others, it's about creation and innovation, engineers designing new technologies, artists expressing ideas, entrepreneurs solving problems. Some find purpose in protecting the environment, advancing justice, or building stronger families and neighborhoods. It doesn't have to be a grand or world-changing mission. It just has to be authentic and deeply felt by the person doing the work. When organizations root their culture and goals in purpose, they reap significant benefits. People feel valued and trusted, not just as workers, but as contributors to a meaningful cause. This sense of connection drives engagement, reduces turnover, and inspires discretionary effort, the kind of extra mile that can't be mandated but flows naturally from commitment. Leaders play a critical role in fostering purpose. It's not enough to post a mission statement or issue inspirational speeches. Purpose must be woven into daily work, reinforced through stories, recognized in achievements, and tied to real impact. When employees understand how their tasks fit into the bigger picture, when they can see the difference their work makes in customers' lives or society at large, motivation soars. Purpose also acts as a compass during hard times. When challenges arise, deadlines tighten, projects fail, setbacks occur, purpose sustains us. It provides a reason to keep going when rewards are distant or uncertain. It turns frustration into fuel and difficulty into meaning. Purpose doesn't replace autonomy or mastery. It complements them. Autonomy gives people the freedom to choose their path. Mastery drives them to improve along that path. Purpose gives that path direction. Without purpose, autonomy can lead to selfishness or wandering, and mastery can become hollow perfectionism. Purpose channels energy and skill towards something valuable. On a personal level, cultivating purpose requires reflection. It asks, why do I do what I do? Who do I want to serve? What difference do I want to make? Aligning daily work with these questions isn't always easy, but it's essential for lasting motivation and fulfillment. Purpose also bridges the gap between individual motivation and collective good. It reminds us that our work, no matter how small, connects to a broader network of human needs and aspirations. Recognizing this connection satisfies our social nature and makes our efforts feel worthwhile. Ultimately, purpose is a profound source of meaning and motivation. It answers the fundamental question of why we get up in the morning, why we persevere, why we care. When work has purpose, it becomes not just something we do to live, but something we live for. In a world filled with distractions, pressures, and constant change, purpose anchors us. It inspires us to rise above short-term thinking and to invest our best selves in work that truly matters. It transforms motivation from a momentary push to a lifelong drive. If you want to motivate yourself or others deeply and sustainably, start with purpose. Find the why behind the what and the how. Because when people know their work makes a difference, they don't just work harder, they work with their whole heart. The Type 1 Toolkit. Type 1 for individuals. If you want to ignite your own motivation, it starts with taking control. Look closely at what truly drives you beneath the surface. Are you chasing external rewards, or do you find joy in the work itself? Seek autonomy by carving out freedom in how and when you work. Pursue mastery by embracing challenges that stretch your skills. And anchor yourself in purpose. Connect your efforts to something meaningful. This is about owning your motivation, breaking free from reliance on praise or punishment, and fueling your drive from within. Type 1 for organizations. Organizations thrive when they create cultures that nurture intrinsic motivation. This means giving employees real autonomy, not just in trivial tasks, but in their core work. It means investing in mastery by providing opportunities for growth, learning, and feedback. And it means crafting and communicating a purpose that resonates beyond profit margins, something that connects every role to a bigger mission. When companies embrace these principles, they don't just improve productivity, they inspire innovation, loyalty, and resilience. Type 1 for parents and educators. The future depends on cultivating Type 1 behavior early. Parents and educators can't rely on bribes or punishments to shape lasting motivation. Instead, they must foster environments that encourage curiosity, creativity, and self-direction. That means giving children and students autonomy to explore their interests, challenging them with opportunities for mastery, and helping them find purpose in what they learn. Teaching motivation this way isn't easy. It requires patience, trust, and a willingness to step back and let intrinsic drive grow. The Zen of compensation money matters, but only to a point. The Zen of compensation is simple. Pay people enough so that money is no longer a worry, but don't expect more money to fuel higher motivation for complex creative work. Beyond a fair baseline, bonuses and incentives can actually undermine intrinsic drive. The best compensation systems treat pay as hygiene, not motivation, and focus instead on creating conditions that nurture autonomy, mastery, and purpose. The Motivation 3.0 Glossary. Language shapes understanding. This glossary clarifies the key terms that underpin Motivation 3.0. Words like autonomy, mastery, purpose, Type 1, Type X, intrinsic motivation, extrinsic motivation, and more. It's a handy reference to keep the conversation clear and grounded, ensuring that everyone speaks the same motivational language and understands the concepts that drive change. The Drive Discussion Guide. Changing how we motivate ourselves and others is no small feat. This discussion guide is designed to help individuals, teams, and organizations explore the ideas of Motivation 3.0 together. It includes questions, exercises, and prompts that spark reflection and dialogue. Use it to challenge assumptions, surface new insights, and plan concrete steps toward building environments where Type 1 motivation can thrive. Because real change happens not just in ideas, but in conversations and actions that follow.